Hello everyone, it's I, Wacky Anime What If here to present you with Aniverse War, Part 1, The Universal Threat. I hope you all enjoy and I hope you like it. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Currently, Ichigo Kurosaki is above Karakura Town with the captains of the 13 court guard squads. He immediately notices that all of them are on edge about Aizen. He can't blame them because he is too, but he feels something else off, and so do they. Even Aizen himself feels something off. He's not worried about them, but he feels something that he should be worried about. But he doesn't know what it is. But he feels like there's a Senkaimon being opened. It's similar to one. They all end up looking to the left of them, and they see a golden and black door directly to the left of them. And it seems to have mysterious patterns and a golden disc on it. Once they see this, they immediately notice that it's starting to open. The doors are opening, as if they're being pushed open. A man is walking out and there's a giant golden light behind him. They can't really see anything until the man puts his hand directly behind him and he says, "Come." And the disc immediately flies off the door and goes into his hand. He immediately puts the disc behind him and presses it into his back. They immediately all are staring at this. And once the light dies down and the disc is taken away, the door disappears immediately. Once they noticed this, they immediately knew that that's not a Senkaimon. That it can't be. After all, only Soul Reapers can use it, and he doesn't have any spiritual pressure at all. It's quite odd. Some humans at least have a little bit of spiritual pressure. He has nothing, though. None. Is what they're all thinking. And Aizen's looking at him very intrigued, but also wondering if he's an enemy or foe, just like everyone else is. While the man immediately looks at all of them, and he ends up saying, "I need to find the stone. Where am I going to find it in this world?" While he's thinking, Ichigo Kurosaki yells out, "Hey, you over there!" And the unknown man says, "Yes, what do you need?" While looking at Ichigo with a dead serious face. Ichigo just now noticed his looks. He has black hair, pitch black hair, and his hair is very long. He has dark crimson eyes, and the fact that he's wearing completely golden and black armor, and that he has a disc imprint on his back, that's where he placed the disc at, and it seems to have merged into the armor. Ichigo immediately just says, after he's dumbfounded by his look, he immediately says, "Hey, whose side are you on? Are you on Aizen's side or the Soul Society?" And he immediately says, "I'm on..." He smiles very devilishly before immediately disappearing as Ichigo blinks. When all of them blink, he's gone. Even Aizen lost sight of him. He's looking a little panicked. But then he immediately puts his composure up and pretends like he's not even fazed. He immediately is trying to scan the area and he says, "Oh, that's where he is," when he notices him. And he says that out loud. Immediately all the Soul Reaper captains say, "Where is he?" But then they realize they're asking their own enemy where another enemy is. They're not going to get an answer. Before Aizen says, "He's right behind you, Ichigo." While Ichigo looks behind him, he immediately gets Getsuga Tensho ready, and he starts to slash directly, diagonally, on the left side of this unknown man. But this unknown man just lifts out his left hand and opens it, and he grabs the blade, and immediately says, "Useless." And he flicks Ichigo in the forehead, and Ichigo didn't think this was going to damage him much, but he was dead wrong. Once he was flicked in the forehead, he got flown 700 meters back. He was flying directly out of Karakura Town. It was devastating. It was an awful display of power that was being presented currently. 700 meters away from one flick is what all the captains were saying. And old man Yamamoto lost a little bit of composure, but he regains it back. And he says, everyone, avert your attention to him. He is a much bigger threat than Aizen. And right when Aizen heard that, he ends up saying, in his head, he says, that's quite impressive, but he doesn't have spiritual energy. Nor does he have what it seems like normal attire for this world. It doesn't even seem he's from this world, or the Soul Society. I'm curious about where he's from. Maybe I should fake allegiance and join him if he makes it out of this. Right when he's thinking this, the unknown figure is getting ready to get on literally getting ready to be jumped. As Hitsugaya, who's already in Bankai state, ends up using his Bankai to make it rain. He's changing the weather to make it rain, and then he's making all the water into ice. And once he does this, all that the unknown figure says is, wow, pretty parlor tricks, as he's being frozen. He's being frozen from the legs up while floating in the air. And once he's frozen all the way up to his head, Hitsugaya immediately says, now who are you? While rushing towards him with the blade. And immediately all that the unknown figure does is flinch his muscles through the armor. Just flinch his arm once, and he breaks all the ice. And Hitsugaya, who's charging directly at him, can't stop because of his momentum. While immediately he's like, I have more important things to do. After all, this blade that I have from that Ichigo fellow that you guys screamed out, well, it's something I need. As he grabs Hitsugaya by the neck, and Hitsugaya, with a little bit of oxygen loss after him having his windpipe almost crushed because he was starting to choke him as hard as possible, he made one ice pillar, but it missed him, is what the unknown man said. You missed me with your last chance to get away. But it was directly behind him, and Hitsugaya ends up saying one thing before losing consciousness. I didn't miss. He loses consciousness immediately and is thrown away. He gets thrown to the ground by the unknown man. He says, I don't see you as a threat, so I won't end you. And right when he says that and throws him to the ground, he notices a presence and near the ice pillar that he has behind him. He looks behind him, but it's too late. Shunsui pops out of the shadow of the pillar and strikes directly at the unknown man's neck. And the unknown man merely puts two fingers up in front of him very quickly, and the first sword just slides in the middle of the two fingers, and he says, you blew it. Before Shunsui says, I have two weapons, just so you know, as one's about to head towards the other side of his neck and he's about to be decapitated, while the unknown man very quickly puts up his other hand and grabs it, and he says, I have two hands, you know, while Shunsui says, is that the best comeback you could come with? And the unknown man just says, well, aside from that, I think you should enjoy your flight. While Shunsui says, huh? Before being thrown by the Zanpakutos all the way to the left and being thrown so far away from Karakura Town that he ends up into a desert. He was thrown over 800 miles, over 800 meters away from Karakura Town. And when the unknown man let go of Zangetsu to grab that blade, Zangetsu was falling downwards, and all he did was descend downwards to grab it. Right when his arm was about to grab the blade's handle, Soifone appears and tries to strike with her Shikai directly at his hand, the front of his hand, while he immediately pulls his arm back upwards so he doesn't get struck by an unknown weapon. Because this seems like a different weapon from the other guy, is what he's thinking. While immediately Soifon just says, "You're kind of smart, but not smart enough," as she immediately kicks him right in the side of the head, and he goes flying a few meters downwards. Right when he's flying downwards, he makes a huge boom, and he's in a crater now. Immediately, Soifon descends downwards as quickly as possible, not to let him get up, and tries to strike right towards his forehead with her Suzume Bachi. But right when she does, all he does is lift his hand upwards and grab her by the wrist before it touches his forehead. And he just breaks her wrist directly there. She screams out in pain, but then all he does is grab her by the face, get up, and start launching her into the building beside him. Just pushes her head in the building beside him, and it just collapses the whole building with how much force he did. And she just turns unconscious almost, but she's still holding on. She immediately says, "Shakaho," and uses her free hand directly to the chest of the man. He immediately goes backwards a little bit and loses his grip. But he has no damage whatsoever, because it was right into his armor. And Soifon says, "Damn, I should have aimed for the head." And right when she said that, the unknown man said, "Even if you would have aimed to the head, it wouldn't matter." As he crouches downwards and picks up Zangetsu, that's right in front of him. As she ends up saying, "Wait, you took the Shakaho so you could get closer to the sword. Why are you trying to grab Ichigo's Zangetsu, his Zanpakuto?" While he immediately says, "Because it's a thing I need." As he takes off the disc from his back, and his glove starts to glow, and he says, "My gloves were glowing this entire time when I touched the Zanpakuto, or thing you called a Zanpakuto. But actually, this thing is something much more than what you people refer to as a Zanpakuto." He immediately crushes his hand towards the blade, and Soifon immediately thinks that she's about to break Ichigo's Zanpakuto, so she rushes in while he merely flicks her on the forehead while she's blinding speed towards him with her flash step, and she gets flicked in the forehead and flies a few meters back, and she tries to go closer towards him while flash stepping behind him this time, and all he does is raise his left leg up and roundhouse kick her. And right when he roundhouse kicks her, she flies 5 meters away to the left side, and there's a glow still around his glove, and now Zangetsu's glowing blue, complete blue, and everyone who's staring are trying to get towards him, but Aizen is stopping the rest of the captains because he's very curious about what this is. While the unknown figure is still holding the glowing Zangetsu, a giant flash of light appears and everyone's blinded, and Zangetsu's gone. They all immediately think that Zangetsu was broken, or that he destroyed it. But right when Orihime was running towards where Ichigo was, she ended up finding that he still had a pulse, and that no injury to the soul occurred. While the unknown man still clenching his fist, he immediately says, "I've got you," while he opens it slowly, and he sees a stone with a sword inside of it. The sword is Zangetsu, and it's Bankai state. While he puts the stone right on his disc that he picked up with his left hand, he immediately places the stone in the middle of the disc, and it gets sucked into the hole, and it just stays in the middle hole of the disc, and he places it directly on his back again, and it implants into the armor. It fuses into the armor, and he says, "Now I've gotten the power of the Soul Reaper stone. Now I need to go find the other stones. He immediately ends up looking at all of them, and he says, "If any of you get in my way, I will kill you." He says it with as much determination and deadliness in his voice, and his aura changed. It made Old Man Yamamoto fall all the way to the ground and pant. All of them were dropping like flies to the ground, panting. But Yamamoto got his composure back. He immediately was in his Bankai, used his Bankai, and started using his flames directly towards him. Well, not his Bankai, his Shikai. Used his flames directly towards the unknown man. While they were rushing at him, all he did was say, flames, how original, before the flames engulfed him. And Yamamoto ended up saying, "Arrogance, young one, can be your undoing." While they didn't expect a reply back, the unknown man who's covered in flames ended up saying, "Yes, arrogance can be your undoing. That's what's going to be your undoing." As he's walking towards Yamamoto, which all of them are on the ground now because of his previous attack with his aura. He was walking towards Yamamoto at just a walking speed while he was on fire. Immediately the fire dissipated, and Yamamoto used it again. But right when he used it again, he noticed that he took some damage. There are some burn marks on his face. And immediately when he used it the second time, there wasn't as much damage when it hit him. He didn't even move to the left or dodge. He just straight up walked through Yamamoto's flames. And he immediately said, "Is this all you have? Your flames were hot the first time. They're kind of mild the second time. Why not a third time a charm? Why don't you try a third time? They called you Yamamoto, right?" As he's slowly walking towards Yamamoto, immediately Soifone, who just got back up, started running towards him with while flash stepping, is directly behind him and pushes Suzume Bachi right towards the back of his head. But he dodged it, but still got grazed. So the pattern appeared in the back of his head. He immediately says, "I felt something different happen that time." What was that? While he roundhouse kicks her directly to the right, and she doesn't exactly go that far this time because he was too distracted to control his strength. So she was only slid about a few meters away, about 2 meters away. And immediately he said, "What happened? Woman, tell me." While looking at Soifone, and Soifone ended up saying, "I don't gotta tell you anything. After all, you're gonna die soon." And right when she said this, he ended up saying, "I'm not gonna die. You're gonna be the ones dying, since you dared to attack me." And he immediately was running towards Soifone before he was engulfed in flames from Yamamoto again. And immediately everyone thought, there's no way he's gonna survive the third one. Before he immediately came out of the flames, grabbed Soifone by the neck, and raised her into the air, while he looked at Yamamoto and said, "Now your flames are icy cold." The third time. Guess third time's a charm doesn't really work, now does it? While he's crushing her windpipe, and he says, "Undo this, or I'll make sure that I undo you." And she's being crushed, but she won't undo it. She tries to aim directly to the forehead with her Suzume Bachi. Directly to the forehead. She's about to hit to the forehead before he grabs her broken wrist that she's still using, her broken arm, and he immediately says, "It's this finger, right? I wonder what would happen if I..." He immediately broke her finger backwards towards her, and he said, "If I make this go through your eye, would your ability still activate? Let's check." And he forces her to plunge her own finger into her eye. She screams out in pain, and she's being choked at the same time. She can't get her screams out. And Yamamoto is still trying to put his flames towards him. It's not working, so he immediately rushes him with his flash step. He's directly behind him, and the unknown man let his guard down. He looked behind him, and then he said, "Oh, I should have probably paid attention to you, is what you're thinking. Before Yamamoto's about to punch him in the face, all he did was reach out the other hand, grab his hand, and he twisted it. And you could hear the bone breaking in his arm, in his hand. Yamamoto immediately swung his Zanpakuto with his opposite hand, his left hand. And right when he did, all the unknown man did was look at the Zanpakuto and say, well, that would be alarming if I was like you guys and pathetically weak. He immediately jumps in the air and dodges the blade. And right when he's landing back downwards, he steps on the blade with as much force as possible, plunging it to the ground, and then he kicks Yamamoto in the face. And when Yamamoto is kicked in the face, he flies back a little bit, still holding onto his Zanpakuto. Then he uses his Shikai flames directly towards the unknown man. And the unknown man says, "You know this isn't going to work, right?" All the flames go around him. And then he is thinking, I think I have a better idea. He puts Soifon directly in front of the flames. Soifon is screaming in anguish and pain. And Yamamoto is just saying, "No!" And Soifon is burned to a crisp almost. But Yamamoto stopped his flames just in the nick of time. But she's still gravely burned. Immediately, he ended up saying, "If you concede and let me go, I will let her go, and I'll let all of you go and live." While he's saying this, Aizen is still occupying most of the other captains, and still basically bodying them like in the original. He is currently fighting against Byakuya, and literally dodging all of his petals. Whenever Byakuya's petals go to the left, he goes to the right. Whenever they go to the right, he goes to the left. And he immediately starts rushing Byakuya and starts pummeling him with just his bare hand. He immediately puts his hand in a blade form. A blade-like form. And just stabs directly across Byakuya's chest. And he falls to the ground. While he's basically bodying everyone else, the unknown man is still literally terrorizing Yamamoto right now. As he's just running toward Yamamoto at blinding speeds. Yamamoto immediately thought that he was flash stepping to do the speed, but he wasn't. It was just his natural speed, which was the most terrifying part. He was directly behind Yamamoto. Yamamoto was trying to find him, but when he realized he was behind him, he looked behind him, and all the unknown man did was grab the jaw, under his jaw, and above his head, and he twisted it, breaking Yamamoto's neck. And he immediately pulled off the disc that was in his back, and he put it in front of him in the air in front of him, and he said, "Open now. Open to me, and only me." And a golden and black door appeared, and it sucked in the disc, and then it immediately unlocked. He pushed it open, and he walked through, but he was not aware that he was being followed. Aizen, who had already bodied all of the other, knocked all of them unconscious, not exactly killed, but gravely injured, has followed him through the door. Also, Kenpachi followed both of them afterwards, because Kenpachi just got out of the Hueco Mundo Las Noches. He immediately got out, and he followed them, just because he sensed the strong presence, and he wanted to fight them. So he went through also. And immediately as they went through, the unknown man ends up looking upon a village once he's through the gate. And he immediately says, well, this seems like a different time period in general. As he's looking around, he sees the trees, and he sees there's no developments in technology. He's looking around and sees nothing, but he senses Aizen. He looks behind him, And right through the door, he sees Aizen. He says, "You, why have you been following me? Do you want to fight?" While Aizen says, "No, I came here to pledge my loyalty." And inside of Aizen's head, he ended up saying, "I'm here to actually get all of your power for myself and merge it with the Hogyaku to become the ultimate life form. I thought I was already on my path to become a god, but if I can gain those powers from those stones, then maybe I can become even greater than a god," is what Aizen was thinking, while fake pledging his loyalty. Immediately, the unknown man said, "Alright, I guess I'll let you follow me." He says, "I sense another person. His energy is quite rough and violent. It's violent like a warrior. After all, I've fought countless people like him. They're crazy for battle and hungry for it." He flies up into the air, and so does Aizen. And he immediately says, "Hold your presence, Aizen. We'll watch him a little bit." And Aizen ended up saying, "That's Kenpachi Zaraki," as soon as he walked out of the gate, out of the door. And immediately, the unknown man says, "Well, that's Kenpachi Zaraki. We'll follow him. After all, strong people are also attracted to even stronger people. He'll find a strong opponent, and I can test if they have the stone with them, or better yet, if they are the stone." And as soon as he says this, Aizen immediately says, "Wait, people could be the stone?" And he says, "Yes, they can be. The only thing is, I use my gloves to be able to compress them into the stone, their original states." As he says that, Aizen asks more questions, but he wouldn't answer, until he asks one more question, "What's your name?" And the unknown man says, "My name is Shoko Uchu. Shoko Uchu." Immediately, Aizen ends up remembering this name as they follow Kenpachi. And Kenpachi wanders across countless land and appears towards apparently a village with a weird symbol. He sees tons of people that look like ninjas, and he starts to fight them. He's completely bodying them. They're all getting knocked out or nearly killed before a young man with blonde hair and a headband on appears. And right next to him seems to be some edgy kid. While Aizen and Shoko are following, and they notice this, immediately Shoko says, "I think I know what the stone is, but I'm going to wait till they start to get into a confrontation. It'll be easier to snatch it then." And Aizen says, "You don't want to do any confrontation. From how much power you have, I figure you can do as many as you want." While Shoko ends up saying, "I don't want to cause unnecessary troubles. After all, I don't want anyone trying to follow me while I'm trying to collect these. That's exactly what my predecessor's problem was." While he says predecessor, Aizen says, "Wait, who was your predecessor?" But Shoko refused to answer. He just watched this unfold. Kenpachi Zaraki was slashing all the ninjas that he came across in that village, while trying to find out where the guy who had killed Yamamoto went. And also, because he was a very good fight, is also another reason he went through the gate once he heard what happened. All of the captains are currently unconscious, is what Kenpachi's thinking. He also ended up saying, "They know how to get here, though, into different worlds. After all, they just have to use the forbidden Sakaimon. They'll have to break their promise with Yamamoto, but it's better to break their promise than let this guy get away. We don't know what he's planning either." As he's slashing through all the ninjas, thinking that this might be his base, he sees a young man with whiskers, essentially, with blonde hair, and an orange jacket looking directly at him in anger, and he can sense some power from him. It's not spiritual pressure, but something different. It's similar. While the young lad ends up saying, "Hey, you! Stop injuring everyone here. I'm gonna stop you." And Kenpachi's like, "You could have stopped me after I ended up injuring or killing, like, about, 1, 2, 3. Kenpachi's counting, and this is annoying Naruto. Naruto ends up saying, you, and he's getting angrier and angrier, and then he's like, "I'm gonna beat you." He's rushing towards him at as much speed as he can, but all that Kenpachi does is just flash step behind him. He tries to trap him on the neck, but Naruto pulls out his kunai and stabs right into his hand. And Kenpachi just looks at the kunai in his hand and he's like, "Huh, you're not like the other ones. You're actually kind of good." While he starts to strike downward with his blade horizontally to the left, Naruto dodges to the right. He does a Rasengan and fires it directly into Kenpachi's chest. Kenpachi gets blown back all the way into the Leaf Village, all the way to the Hokage's office from this actual Rasengan. And all of a sudden, when he's blown into the Hokage office, he jumps out of it. He runs towards Kenpachi runs towards Naruto with his blade and strikes directly downwards at Naruto once he appears in front of him while flash stepping. Naruto could hardly see it, but he could sense it with Kurama's help. So he pulled out another kunai and he immediately blocked Kenpachi's blade. They were crossing blades, and all of a sudden, Naruto was like, "I need to use the tailed beast mode if I'm gonna beat this guy, aren't I?" He kicks him directly into the chest, and Kenpachi just basically eats it. And Naruto loads another Rasengan, and Kenpachi knows better this time, and he actually dodges to the left. But once the Rasengan goes past him, he didn't notice that there was a shadow clone right behind him. Right when Kenpachi looked behind him, he sliced downwards on him. But then it poofed into smoke, and there was just there wasn't a log or anything. Because he sliced into a tree, he just saw a log. He immediately looked behind him again and didn't see him. He was wondering where he was. Naruto was going tree to tree, trying to get a good angle where to strike at Kenpachi, because there was trees inside of the hidden leaf that he was using for mobility while jumping off of them. He immediately used a Rasengan right into Kenpachi's back. Right when he did, it immediately hit. Kenpachi went flying all the way into the training area inside of the hidden leaf. Once he was blown into the training area, Naruto immediately ran towards there right after Kenpachi, and he went directly forward towards him and sliced him down with the kunai. He managed to get a few cuts in before Kenpachi ended up saying, "Now this is a real fight. I haven't been this excited since I fought Ichigo." And he slices directly at Naruto's hand, and he does a massive cut into his hand. And right when that happens, his kunai gets knocked out of his hand, his left hand. And Kenpachi says, "Oh, your little weapon's gone." He strikes downwards on Naruto before Naruto's pulled away. And immediately this one very edgy kid who was there from the beginning but didn't manage to really do anything because he was focusing on the presences he was sensing before when he was sensing chakra flow. Well, not chakra flow, but similar to it. He was focusing on the ones in the air because he thought Naruto could deal with this one. But of course he was wrong. So he bailed Naruto out by using Almighty Pull and just pulling him away from Kenpachi's blow, which would have been a finishing blow if not. Immediately Sasuke said, "Naruto, I think we're going to have to go all out against this guy." And Kenpachi was just having a big grin. And he said, "I get to fight not one, but two strong guys. Is it my birthday?" He immediately lifts up his eye patch, and all the spiritual pressure flows out of him. And Naruto just ends up saying, "Oh my god, this guy, Sasuke, he's very strong. It feels almost like nine-tailed chakra from how violent and rigid this aura is. His chakra is." While Sasuke just says, "This isn't chakra, it's just similar to it." And he gets out his blade, and they both start charging towards him. Kenpachi charges at them at the same time, too. He immediately strikes down towards Naruto. Naruto's blocks with his left hand that has a kunai in it before using a Rasengan in his right hand and tries to put it towards Kenpachi's gut. Kenpachi just moves to the left, and immediately when he does that, it was the biggest mistake. Right behind him, Itachi immediately had a Chidori and was about to go right through his back. But Kenpachi immediately put his opposite hand that he used to strike Naruto behind him and grabbed his wrist before the Chidori could go through. He immediately ripped it with as much strength as possible, and Sasuke had a few cracks in his wrist. It felt like his wrist was breaking. So he immediately started using Fireball Jutsu right towards him with one hand. And right when he did, Kenpachi moved out of the way. He basically flashed stepped backwards away from them. And he said, you ready for another clash?" He started rushing towards Sasuke now, and trying to swipe directly to the left of him. Sasuke went to the right, and he was dodging constantly, while Naruto was charging up a Rasengan Shuriken directly towards Kenpachi. Right when that was happening, and Sasuke was dodging, he immediately used a Mataratsu. The Mataratsu got onto the Zanpakuto, and it started burning it, and Kenpachi immediately said, "What is this supposed to be? After all he did was put my sword on fire. It's better to slice you with." Before it started going all the way up the handle, all the way down the blade to the handle, and it started burning his hand. He immediately tried to douse it out by running towards the water very quickly and shoving his hand into the water, but it didn't go out. He immediately looked behind him, right towards Sasuke, who was smirking at him, and said, "Amaterasu won't go out. It's a never-ending flame." As he was saying that, and blood was dripping down his eye, Kenpachi ended up saying, "Very interesting," as he was about to charge directly at him again, even though his hand was burning. He used his opposite hand with his blade, running towards Sasuke while Sasuke was running towards him, and Naruto was using a Rasengan Shuriken and threw it directly behind Sasuke. Right when Sasuke was in front of Kenpachi and he was about to clash, he moved to the left, and Kenpachi saw this giant Rasengan Shuriken, and it just ended up crashing into him. And he was flung about a few meters away, about 50 meters away, which was quite a shocker for Kenpachi, that these two were doing quite well while fighting him. He's never felt this exhilarated since he was fighting against Ichigo Kurosaki, or those Arrancar freaks. Immediately while he's thinking about this, he feels like he's being pulled closer to someone. Sasuke is using his Rinnegan to pull him towards him and trying to plunge him into the sword. Immediately, Kenpachi grabs on to a tree since they're in the training area. But that tree does not let him hold on to it for that long because it breaks. The tree branch that he was holding on to breaks and he's still being pulled towards Sasuke. So he immediately just gets his Zanpakuto and slices downwards and hopes he can get towards Sasuke before Sasuke gets to him. And right before they could both clash, all of a sudden, Sasuke feels a hand on his face, and he hears a word, "I gotcha," while immediately Shokyo immediately had him in his grasp by the face, and he said, "I'm taking this with me," and he just disappeared, while Naruto and Kenpachi are both looking at each other, and Kenpachi says, "That must have been the strong guy," well, Naruto thinks that he is working with him, so they're continuously fighting. And this is where I end part 1. I hope you all enjoyed.